Hey guys, welcome back. Hope everybody's doing well. So last time we talked about buying a home. We talked about mortgages. So mortgages just being that very large loan for you to buy the house. And I want to think for a second as what actually happens when you do that. So if you're buying a home for whatever amount of money the selling price ended up being, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's very expensive. And so the mortgage is mostly here because you don't have all of that money in cash to buy it. The bank does, because banks are very large. They have access to a lot of money. So the bank is buying it kind of on your behalf. They're giving the person all of the money at that time. And then you spend the next 15 or 30 years paying that money back to the bank, to the mortgage company, that put all the money up to begin with. So in this process, something you might want to think about is, do you even own the home? Because you are the person who is paying back the bank. The bank is actually the person that put up all the money for that. So the short answer is yes, you own the home. But there's some caveats to that. You own the home in the sense that you can do things to it. You can paint it. You can, nail things to the side of it. You can decorate it however you want. You can remodel a kitchen. You don't have to ask people about this. These are things that you can't do when you're renting. When you're renting, you pretty much have to ask your landlord to do everything because you don't actually own that space at all. However, what does occur in this, a mortgage is an agreement that grants the bank the title until you pay back the mortgage. So what that means is until you finish paying off the mortgage, the little tiny piece of paper that says, I own this home, stays in the possession of the bank that you're paying the money back to. If you end up paying off the loan, then the bank transfers that title to you, and then you finally have your little piece of paper. Now, what other costs are there when you're buying a home? So this would be the time where I would ask you guys, we'd run through the list. People shout out utilities, right? So that's like water, that's gas, that's electricity, right? These are things that you're going to have to spend on a home. There are property taxes. Okay. Property taxes, we'll talk about a little more. You pay those based on how valuable the property is. So people with more property or more expensive properties end up paying more than people who own less expensive properties. There's also insurance, specifically homeowners insurance. Another kind of insurance, PMI, which we've already talked about in the last lesson. And then there's just general maintenance and stuff like that. And if you can think of some more, There are a lot of other things that cost money in the home. Now, the things that end up being the largest are kind of property taxes. Property taxes are a lot of money. Insurance is usually pretty expensive. And PMI, you pretty much need to be paying, assuming you didn't put down 20%, right, that we talked about from the last lesson. And not paying these creates issues for you. Most of them, if you don't pay utilities, there can be something called a lien that's put on your house. Lien, L-I-E-N, not L-E-A-N. A lien put on your home. And what that is, that's essentially like a little IOU. So a lien put on your property. It's essentially an IOU that must be repaid by the time the property sells. So it must be repaid when property sells. Okay, so this is like if you had a water bill and you didn't pay it, they can't really turn off your water. You need to have access to water. But what you can do is you can put a lien on the person's home. So if you're behind on water payments, eventually that means you can't get away from paying that forever. Eventually, if I sell my home, the courts will have a record that this lien was placed on my property, and when I sell the home, some of that money must go to pay off these debts. Okay. I don't know a lot of the details on this. This is like some very legal stuff. I do know when I bought my home, there happened to be a lien on it. They have to check the title to see if it's quote unquote clean. And they ran a title check on the house that I was buying, and they found that there was like a $40 water bill still on there. So the people selling me the home had to pay that off before they could sell me the house. Now, if you don't pay PMI, that's not good because you're required to do that by the bank. If you don't pay insurance, then your insurance would be canceled. And then if your house unfortunately burns down or gets struck by lightning and you don't have insurance, now your property is gone. You don't have the replacement. And the bank that you owe thousands of dollars to now can't recoup their money because normally they can recoup it by repossessing the home or something like that. But if there's no property to repossess, then they don't get their money back. So the bank really, really needs you to keep your home insured. And if you don't pay your property taxes, there's a lot of other legal issues with that as well. So in a way, the bank almost needs to babysit you because the bank must make sure that these things are getting paid. Because if you're not paying these things, then they can have a giant liability in the end of it as well, okay, because they wouldn't have a way to recoup their money. So how do they do that? They actually set up a whole system to essentially pay all of these on your behalf, okay? Now, they don't pay it for you. You still have to pay for it, but they pay for it kind of on your behalf, okay? Because people aren't very good at budgeting sometimes, and they're forgetful, and the bank needs to take care of this in some way. So they set up what's called an escrow account, okay? So an escrow account is a separate bank account. It's like if you have a checking account or a savings account. So it's a separate bank account, okay, that you pay into. Okay, you pay into with what are called escrow payments. So last class we talked about mortgages, okay, and we're going to look at calculating the mortgage costs, okay. But now in addition to paying for the mortgage, you're going to pay even more money, and that money's going to go into an escrow account, okay. So it's a separate banking account that you pay into, okay, that the banks are spelled with B's, not with P's, so that the bank uses to pay the property taxes, insurance, and PMI. Okay? So you don't actually get your property taxes in the mail. The bank does, and they pay for the property taxes on your behalf. All right? And I'll show you how this works later. Okay, if you're having a hard time visualizing what this does, I printed something out. I'll show you at the end. All right. So first of these three things we want to go into details on are property taxes. Property taxes are paid based on the value of the property. Okay, and this is to pay for local government. Mostly. Okay, now what things cover local government? That would be like police, fire, schools. Okay, that's where most of the money goes. Most of the money to pay for the schools and the teachers' salaries and stuff like that come from the local property taxes. Okay. And this property tax rate is actually not listed as a percentage like you would almost expect. It is actually listed as a rate, okay, per $1,000 of home value. Okay, this is per year. All right, and so the one that I'm going to give you, every town sets their own property tax rate. Okay, so I'll tell you the one in Ashland for this year. The 2020 Ashland property tax rate is listed as $16.16. Okay, so what that means is for every $1,000 your home is worth, you must pay $16.60 every year in property taxes. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is homeowners insurance. Okay, we're not going to really have to talk about PMI because we did that in the last video. All right, so homeowners insurance covers some things that I think are obvious and some things that are less obvious. Okay, so it covers obvious things that are pretty easy for you to guess, like home damage. So damages by fire, lightning, hail, etc., stuff like that. Okay. We'll generally cover damage to your home. You can add on structures, so it can also cover structures like fences, maybe you have a shed, maybe a detached garage. Okay, these things have to be kind of declared and listed because having these things covered may make your homeowner insurance more expensive. But that's it there. Okay, now that's kind of the more straightforward one. Something that might be less obvious is actually personal property. Okay, so for example, it'll cover up to a certain amount of money if, say, you lost your home to fire or some sort of natural disaster, and it caused you to lose, some furniture, television, stuff like that. Those things to be covered. You can also insure individual items. So, for example, I added my wife's engagement ring on my homeowner's insurance. Okay, so for an extra whatever it was a year, it's like $10 a year or something like that. The value of her engagement ring is covered. So if it was to be stolen or something like that, then that would be covered. Okay. I'm getting a sense right now. This is like if we were in class and there were 20 of you guys in front of me. This is when I usually start to get like fraud questions. People are like, "Well, what if you say the ring is lost?" Yada yada yada. And we don't encourage insurance fraud. I usually say that would be fraud. That would be illegal. But actually, when I was doing my master's degree in applied statistics, I had a class with people who were data scientists, so people who did a lot of computer stuff. And I met this one woman whose project she was working on was detecting insurance fraud. And for instance, like let's say I committed insurance fraud and I said that my wife's engagement ring was stolen. This kind of algorithm would search publicly available photos, like from social media and stuff like that. And it would find if it ever saw her engagement ring again. So if she ended up in a photo wearing the engagement ring that I said was stolen, it would flag it. Okay, so that's kind of where technology is going. Just as a general rule of thumb, you should probably not commit crimes, so keep that in mind as well. The last thing that this can cover that people don't usually consider about is liability. Okay? Owning a home can be scary for a lot of reasons, mostly because of how expensive it is to maintain, how expensive everything is when it seems to break. But perhaps one of the most disconcerting or very concerning things is the idea of liability. So someone who is injured on your property, may sue you. You may be liable for damages. So if you have a slippery step, okay, and let's say the mailman or the UPS driver or somebody comes to deliver something and they slip and injure themselves, okay, you may be liable. Even if you had like a friend over, if you had a friend or an acquaintance, just some other person over to your property, and they injured themselves, something fell off your roof, you would be liable. So homeowners insurance actually has some liability coverage that you can get that would pay for that. So it would cover up to, say, $1 million of you being sued for damages. Very similar to the liability coverage that you probably pay for your car. Okay, very similar idea. All right. So last thing here, I would run through one example, and then I'll kind of show you how this whole escrow thing works. Okay. So Jane here bought a $320,000 home in Ashland. They have homeowners insurance policy. It costs $1,076 a year, and she's also paying $111 a month in PMI. Okay. So she's going to pay into an escrow account. So essentially what we need to do is we need to find out what each of these things costs on a monthly basis, and then just combine them all together. Okay, so I make myself a little bit of like a table almost to try to figure this out. So let's start with property taxes. Okay, those are going to be probably the most the ones that you really have to do the most calculations for. The rest of it is largely going to be given to you. You may have to calculate your own PMI. Check back at your notes from the other day if you need to remember how to do that. So property taxes are, remember, a rate per $1,000 home value. So here the value of this home is $320,000, okay? And the property tax rate, now keep in mind, it's not given here because I listed it as Ashland. So on the previous page, we talked about the rate for Ashland, which is listed at $16.16. Now, remember, it's not listed as a percentage. Your property tax rate is going to be listed as a dollar amount per $1,000 of home value. Okay, so for every $1,000 this home is worth, you have to pay $16.16 a year. So you multiply all this out, you find out that the yearly property taxes here is over $5,000. So $5,171.20. Okay, so let's make a little list here. Property tax. All right. So yearly, we have $5,171.20, which means that monthly, you just divide that by 12, comes out to be about $430.93. Okay. The other thing we have to pay for, what else do we have here? We need PMI. Okay. Now PMI is already listed per month, so forget yearly. We'll jump right to monthly. PMI is $111.47 per month. And then lastly, we need the homeowner's insurance, which is given to us as an annual premium of $1,076, which comes out to be divided that by 12. That is $89.66 a year. Okay, so you're basically going to add up these monthly payments, and you get this is $632.06 per month. Okay, and that's a lot of money. So that's on top of the mortgage. Okay, so you have to pay for the mortgage payments, which are already kind of a lot, and now we have to include this escrow. And so a lot of times those things will be lumped together. So you write one really big check to the bank every month. Okay, now why do we have to do this? Because this budgeting becomes complicated for people because it's not really a monthly cost. PMI, or excuse me, your property taxes are actually paid quarterly, which means you pay them 4 times a year. So you're not paying $430 a month. Okay, what that means is every 3 months you're getting a large bill for like $1,300. Okay, that's kind of a lot. And a lot of times, homeowners insurance, they give you like a discount if you pay in one lump sum instead of paying, monthly. So this might just happen all in 1 month as well. So you can't really budget this monthly. So people would get themselves in trouble if you're going to say, okay, this month cost me nothing, this month cost me nothing, then the next month I have to pay $1,300 for my property taxes, okay? Or maybe there's a month where I have to pay the $1,300 in my property taxes and the $1,000 in the insurance and the mortgage, okay? So it's a lot of budgeting. So what that would look like, and I'll just end it here, okay, is I kind of printed this out for you. So you would need some sort of starting amount of money. So let's say we just start in January, okay? So every month you make the same escrow payment, okay? So we put the $632.06 every month. The PMI comes out every month, all right? But these other things happen more infrequently. So the property taxes only happen every 3 months, okay? And then I'm just having the insurance happen just once a year so we can get that price. So as you see, some months only cost you $111. Some months end up costing you the $111 plus the $1,300. And then kind of once a year, everything kind of falls into place at one time, and this becomes an extremely expensive month, all right? And so what happens is you see your escrow balance, which starts at $500, kind of go up, and then it chunks down when you get the property taxes, goes up again, falls again with property taxes, etc. And then by the time everything that's supposed to be covered by the escrow payments is taken care of, you roughly end where you started, okay? So what would happen here, right? To start at $500 and to end at $499.98, your escrow gets adjusted. So essentially, this is operating at kind of a loss. So the bank would probably send me a letter, okay, because I rounded wrong, and the bank would say, hey, your escrow payments are actually going to go up to $632.08, or something like that. Okay, so every year when the property tax rates change, when your homeowner's insurance changes, you may get a letter from the bank that says, hey, your escrow payments are going to go up, or hey, your escrow payments are going to go down. The idea is that this starting amount and that ending amount should be the same. So whatever adjustments have to be made so that it all kind of comes out on the wash, they will do. Okay? All right. So back on here, there are a few practice questions. There's one at the bottom, and there's a couple on the next page. A couple of them require you to calculate your own PMI, so you may have to look back at the notes from the previous day. But that's about it, so good luck with that. Email me if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll see you guys on Friday for office hours. Take care. Stay safe.